And ranking well can really make the difference between a good business and a great business, and a business that throws up a bit of profit, and a business who creates massive profits. So this is really important stuff. Okay, so the first thing you really have to know about SEO is that you have to have your website built on solid ground. So what I mean by that is you have to have a good web coder or web designer, somebody who knows how to write good code. Because your source code determines how fast your website will load and how easy it is for the search engines to look through your website. Yeah, so it's really important even who you choose to build your website, because if you have a website that's built on bad code, then your website is going to have a very, very hard time to ever rank well. I've just put a little, if you don't know what I'm talking about when I talk about code, so your website is obviously build on HTML code, and this is kind of, if you've never seen it, this is kind of what it looks like. There's a lot of tags in there, and a lot of characters, and one way to look at good code is basically the code has to be quite concise. So the more up to date your web designer or your web coder is, the less characters he will need to say, or she will need, should I say, she or he will need to say the same things, so to come out with the same image at the other end that we then see when we go into our browsers. So basically, it's you can compare it with when you're reading a book, so if you have bad code, you kind of have maybe the size of 1,000 pages in a book, and the search engines have to go through all this stuff to get to the same results as somebody who can say the same thing in 10 pages. I hope this makes sense, because this is really important. So the shorter the code is, the less clutter there is in the code, the faster the websites can load, and the easier it is for the search engines to read your website. And as we've said before, it's important to make it easy for the search engines. Okay, so secondly, submit your site to the search engines. So this is really something really simple that, again, a lot of web people don't do for their clients. I get a lot of clients who come to me and say, well, they've had a website for 6 months and they're still not indexed, and they're still not coming up even under their own name. And generally this is because you or your web person, depending on what you've arranged with that person, haven't submitted the site to the search engine. So it's as simple as telling the search engines that you exist, that you want to be seen, that you want to get found. So what you do is you can do this yourself, or you can ask your web person to do this. And all you need to do is go to the webmaster tools, find those webmaster tools on Google, and you're looking for the webmaster tools for Google, Yahoo, and Bing. That's completely sufficient. And there's a step-by-step system. There's just a couple of forms to fill in, and submit your site to the search engines so that they actually know you exist. Once that they know you exist, they can then index you. It's that simple. 3 and 4 are a little bit connected. So on Google, it's obviously a really good thing to have an optimized Google Places listing. Google Places listings have been around for a long time, but they've been known under Google Local and Google Maps in the past. These days, Google calls them Google Places listings. These listings have come into being because it was getting quite tedious on Google to find local business services. because local business services, as a rule and traditionally, didn't really rank that well on Google. So Google has came up with this plan, because obviously a lot of people use Google to search for a local service or product. So they've come up with this plan, and now when you go into Google and when you type in a localized search, say for a plumber, as we've seen before, for a plumber in Melbourne and so on, then you actually get a little map on the right hand side with the little flags on the left, and you get the businesses listed on the map, so you know where they are. This has been really successful thing. This is also one of the probably best things you could do for your business today, to have an optimized Google Places listings. A lot of my clients, a lot of the people that I do these listings for, get pretty much instant results from their Google Places listing, and these actually make the phone ring. So if you haven't got a Google Places listing, get it now. You can do it yourself, or you can ask any web designer or us to do it for you. It's pretty simple to do, but to optimize it, there's a few tricks to optimize it, but it's really important. Then on your website, and this makes a great difference for Google, on your website you have to have the same address on the contact page with an interactive Google map. So why is this important for Google, that you have a Google Places listing and you have an interactive Google map on your website with that same address? It's pretty much credibility on Google. So in the past, there were many people who just willy-nilly listed businesses on Google to get a better ranking. So now Google makes sure that you are an actually existing business, that you are a local business, and that that you exist in that location that you said that you are, because many people try to actually get listed in a place where they're not necessarily have an office or their business location. For example, I live on the Mornington Peninsula in a little place called Mount Eliza. So my Google Places listing comes up as web designer sales in Mount Eliza, and I do rank top in Mount Eliza, but the thing is that not many people actually search for a web designer in Mount Eliza, so it's not really that great for me. If, however, I had an office in Frankston and I would come up top in the Frankston listing, that would be a completely different matter, because lots of people actually search for web designers in Frankston. So businesses have been known to try and trick Google a little bit and get Google Places listings sort of in the next bigger suburb, because they know they'll get more phone calls. I can only say don't try to fool Google, because if Google catches on to you trying to mess with them, they will just ban you, and not just take off your Google Places listings, but they'll also ban your website from Google. And I'm sure you can imagine what it might do to your business if you never got listed on Google again. And funnily enough, I do have a client who has tried this, and what happened was that Google actually called him only a couple of weeks after he did it, and he managed to talk himself out of it. But basically, my guess at what happened is that his competitor in Frankston would have seen what's going on, and actually alerted Google to the fact that that there was somebody who was trying to cheat with their address. So these things do happen, and Google does get notified of these things. So the message here is definitely do not mess with Google. Okay, have a relevant domain name. Now this is one of my bees that, again, if you've heard me speak before, I like to sometimes talk about the bees that I have in my bonnet. Some people call these pet hates. I call them my bees. This is definitely one of my bees. And probably the reason why I'm so passionate about domain names is because I've been through this process where I had a really, really terrible business name. And it really, really, really didn't work for me. It didn't work for me on Facebook, didn't work for me on the search engines. It didn't work for me, full stop. And I'll tell you all about it in a minute. But this is probably why, because I've had the experience and I spend a fair bit of money on my previous business branding. So I've been through the process, and it's very frustrating when you have to go through it. So have a relevant domain name from the outset. It is so, so important. So what do I mean by a relevant domain name? My business now is called Web Design Net Sales, and the reason why it's called Web Design Net Sales is because firstly because web design is a very powerful keyword. So many, many, many people in Australia and in the world look for web design as a keyword because everybody needs a website, right? So I knew that I wanted the words web design in my domain name. And then I did want to, the story around that sales is a little bit more complicated because I did want to distinguish myself from web designers that create websites that look pretty but that don't necessarily help the businesses a lot. So that's where that came about. Now, the second reason why I chose this domain name is obviously that when you see my domain name, then you know what I'm about. So it's about being relevant for search engines, but it's also about being user-friendly, being sort of telling people what I'm about, so they know exactly when they look at my domain name. It's enough for them to look at my domain name to know what I'm about. So it's kind of my tagline at the same time. Now, my business used to be called Brilliant Minds. Now you can imagine, every time I told somebody my business name, there'd be a puzzled look and, okay, what do you do? And when I said, well, we do web design and online marketing, let's just say that people didn't really make the connection. And that's not good on the search engines. It's not very user-friendly. And as a little add-on, I can also tell you it really, really doesn't work on Facebook. So your domain name and your business name is really, really important. And I'll just tell you quickly in a minute the little Facebook story about it, because Facebook was actually probably where I noticed it most, that my domain name, which was Brilliant Minds as well, and business name weren't working for me. So on Facebook, statistically, everybody has about 130 friends, right? So when somebody likes your Facebook page, then statistically 130 people get to see that, and it's like a mini recommendation. So if you are a small business and you have a lot of friends in small business, and you want to mini recommend a company that you're working with, then you can like somebody's page. Your business friends can see this on your Facebook page, and they might just go and check out this business that you're dealing with.